as we've made clear, part of the stuff we do on this channel are things we do for the first time. And today we're going to double down on that, and we're going to try something for the first time using a tool we have never used before for this purpose. So, today we're going to try to make cheesecake in the Instant Pot. I've never made cheesecake. I've always been kind of intimidated by it. My understanding is if you don't do it just right, it doesn't turn out very good. So I went out and found an Instant Pot recipe for this. One of the reasons I really like this recipe is it gives a lot of the things to do and a lot of the things to not do in order to make this not turn out proper. So this recipe is called Instant Pot New York Cheesecake number 17. I don't know what happened to recipes number 1 through 16 or if there's any following this. All I know is that's what this one is called. Some of the caveats they give us are things like to use a hand mixer instead of a stand mixer because really you're only mixing things for very short periods of time on very low speed. You don't want to really whip it because then it becomes fluffy and you want it to be a dense material. That's the sign of a good cheesecake, unless you want it whipped. They do have those as well. I don't. So they give you, proper times for mixing and the speeds and all that. So that's going to be very helpful. Another thing they tell us, and they stress this in bold, very, very important, is to make sure that all of your dairy type ingredients, the cream cheese, the sour cream, the eggs, everything is at room temperature when you start with this. So they give you a lot of good advice. Now, we're going to be using a springform pan. I bought this just for this purpose, but I needed it before. If you remember, a little while ago I made lasagna and I could have used this in it. But the springform pan has this clamp on the side, and it will actually pop the bottom out. So you have this. Now it's waterproof, liquid proof, so when you close it, it seals. But this allows you to have a cake that's molded round that you can remove the siding from and just have the base. Now, the instructions for this springform pan tell us that you don't need anything to protect it from sticking or anything like that. The instructions of the recipe say to use parchment paper on the bottom and on the sides. So we're going to follow the instructions from the recipe and use the parchment paper in the springform pan. I don't think there's any harm in that. So again, sticking to the recipe itself. The recipe has 2 phases. The first phase is making the crust. And so basically you're going to mix up the crust ingredients, which includes graham crackers, unsalted butter, salt, and brown sugar. Now they give you some ranges of amounts of these ingredients in order to have it sweeter or less sweet and things like that. So I think that's kind of nice as well. They also give you some options for doing what they call blind baking the crust. That involves some flour as well, and you actually put the crust in and put the crust in the oven for a little bit. We're not going to follow that. We're going to do this all in the Instant Pot. So the first step in this is we take about 10 graham crackers and we get to use our little mini food processor. So we're going to grind up 10 graham crackers really fine in our trusty food processor. So let's go ahead and start with that. I just love the smell of graham crackers. Also, just a quick note, I'll put the recipe down below so you can follow this as well. So, all right, 10 graham crackers finely ground. All right, next it says to add a pinch of sea salt and between 2 teaspoons to 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. That's a pretty broad range. We'll go somewhere in the middle. We'll just say 1 tablespoon. All right, so we'll go ahead and whisk together the dry ingredients. It smells amazing. And next we're going to mix in 3 to 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter until the mixture sticks together. I'm not going to use a whisk on that. I think it'll get too clumpy up inside the spines. So we're just going to use a fork to mix this. But let's go ahead and get the butter melted and we'll pour it right in. All right. Trying to mix it really well because it doesn't seem to be very, I mean, it seems sticky, but it doesn't seem to be sticking together, and maybe that's what it's supposed to do. So let's just keep stirring it till we feel comfortable with that. I mean, it does seem a little damp, and it does seem if you put the fork in it, it's going to compress. And I think that's really what the next step of this is the compression. So, we have our pan, we have our parchment paper. It says to form the crust, pour in the graham cracker crumbs mixture, gently press down the crumbs with a ramekin, I don't know what that is, or a mason jar. I know, I'm Southern, I don't have a mason jar, it's sacrilege. It'll be okay. To form an even layer, you can also use a spoon for the edges. So we're gonna do the base, but we're also gonna do the sides. All right, here we go. So, instead of those things, I'm just going to use this IKEA glass, and we'll just start jamming this down in the bottom, flattening it out, and then we'll move it up to the sides. So I'm going to try to get it really good and flat in the middle, and then kind of push the edges out to the side so that we can run those up the side of the pan. All right, and we're going to compress it really good. Well, it looks like the side parchment paper didn't work out very well, so we're going to work around that. Okay, so not a lot of luck with the side parchment paper. We're going to trust that the pan does what it says it's going to do. This is how the crust looks. And our next step is to put the pan with the crust in the freezer while we make the filling. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we've got our hand mixer ready. And it says to start out by mixing the dry ingredients in its own mixing bowl. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to mix the 2/3 of a cup of sugar, the 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and a pinch of sea salt together. All right, next we're going to put the cream cheese in a bowl and we're going to briefly beat it. It says about 10 seconds, so just enough to break it up, I guess. All right, 10 seconds at low speed. It does say repeatedly to use a silicone spatula to scrape the sides of the bowl and to clean out the beaters in order to make sure this doesn't get, or this gets mixed well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is add in half of the sugar mixture and beat it until just incorporated using low speed, about 20 to 30 seconds. All right, let's add half. So again, we're making sure we don't whip it. Okay. All right, so add the rest of the dry goods. And beat it low speed another 20 to 30 seconds. It's getting very creamy. All right, add sour cream and vanilla extract. So we'll be adding a half a cup of sour cream and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Again, beat it in about 20 to 30 seconds. Oh my God, it smells so good. I love vanilla so much. Okay, now we blend in the 2 eggs, one at a time, and beating it in at low speed while we're doing it, just enough to get it incorporated. All right, now we just add the batter into the pan, and I guess that constitutes our cheesecake. Then what we'll do is we'll tap it on the counter a little bit to get any bubbles to release, to get any air out, and then we'll be ready to cook it. Seems easy. I don't know why I was so scared of it all these years. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it turns out before we pat ourselves on the back. All right, let's go ahead and add the batter to the pan. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put it right in the middle and then spread it out. I don't want to take a chance of damaging the sides. Look how thick that is. I'm just gonna sort of lightly smooth it out and then we'll tap it for the air bubbles. Well, I did see a couple of air bubbles come up, very tiny ones, so I don't know how much good that was doing us. But let's get on to cooking this. I'm super excited. Okay, so what we do now is we get out the Instant Pot. We're gonna put a cup of cold water in the bottom, and we have our trivet. We'll put that on top of the water, and we'll rest our cake on top of that, and that's it. All right, 1 cup of cold water in the bottom. And the trivet. And the cake. All right, that went in pretty easily. All right, now we pressure cook this on high for 26 minutes. And then we allow for a full natural pressure release. So set it for 26 minutes, and I guess we'll see you back then. Be right back. All right, it's finished cooking. We're gonna let it naturally decompress for about 7 minutes, and then we'll remove the lid and let it start to cool down. All right, it's been 7 minutes. Let's go ahead and finish the decompression and let's see what we have. Now, one of the things it does tell us is that there will be condensation on the top of the cheesecake. So we're going to use a little bit of a paper towel to absorb that condensation. Wow, look at that. Well, you can't, it's steamy. All right, there we go. A little lumpy and bumpy on top. Not perfect, but let's go ahead and absorb the liquids. All right, well, it doesn't look perfect. I think it's how it tastes is going to be the most important thing. But for our first attempt, so far so good. Now, the next thing we're supposed to do is let it cool for 10 to 15 minutes in the pot. And then we'll use a paring knife to separate the cake from the side so that as it cools further, it doesn't crack. Okay, so we'll be back in about 10 minutes. We'll separate the cake from the side, and then we'll continue to let it cool down. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and remove it from the Instant Pot. We're gonna put it on this wire rack here, and we're going to use a paring knife to separate it from the sides, again, to keep it from cracking. So let's go ahead and pull it out. It's warm, but not hot. And we'll use the paring knife on the edges. All right, now we're gonna let it cool completely down. And then I think we're gonna try to take the spring sides off. We'll leave it on the bottom, and then we'll put it in the fridge. And what they tell us to do is to let it sit overnight. They say 4 to 8 hours, preferably overnight. We're gonna leave it sit overnight, and we'll try it tomorrow. I'll show you taking off the sides and putting it in the fridge, and then we'll see you tomorrow for the taste testing. We'll see you then. Okay, open them.
Ooh, that looks really good. Yummy. Mmm. Mmm. Really good. And remember, I only have cheesecake like once a year. Delicious.
I would have cheesecake every day, but I don't. So let's give this a little try. It's very nice and dense, like I like. It's perfect. So perfect. Super creamy. The vanilla is delicious. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's amazing.
You had blueberry, I had cherry. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Would you like to try the blueberry?
I think I do. So I'm going to take a little piece of here, and I want to get the crust.
We're going to go enjoy this. We'll see y'all later. Oh, by the way, will this Instapot? Yes, it will. Bye now.